and welcome. PilotSafety.org is a volunteer group dedicated to reducing general aviation accidents by providing free and low-cost training and safety resources for pilots. Learn more now at PilotSafety.org. Our speaker today is Gary Reeves. Gary has over 6,000 hours, is an ATP, and a master flight, instrument, and multi-engine instructor. He volunteers as a Young Eagles flight leader for the EAA, and a nationally recognized expert in Garmin avionics, IFR, iPad use, and mountain flying. In 2016, Gary was awarded the FAA Instructor of the Year for the Western Pacific region, which includes Arizona, California, Hawaii, and Nevada. This means he is one of the top 8 instructors in the whole country. There are 112,000 instructors in the U.S. Less than 800 have ever been named Master. California only has 13. Please welcome 2016 Western Pacific Regional Instructor of the Year Master CFI, Gary Reeves.
Hey guys, how are you? You know, I really kind of sound pretty good on paper, huh? Well, this is the last time you'll see me, at least until Oshkosh is where I'll be next. Let's go ahead and start the webinar and get right into the awesome power of FlyQ. If you have a question at any time, please use the questions feature. All of you are muted, so I can't hear you talk. This is what we're going to cover tonight. The new terrain-based map, the new road-based map, the new photographic satellite-based map, which is like an aerial photo view, the new Seattle Avionics Airport Diagrams, and this is probably the biggest upgrade I've ever seen, and it's huge. Some all-new TFR handling, including sports TFRs, which is great. Added ground elevation for any point. Added vertical speed required gauge. The web-based FlyQ Online, and the sync between AOPA Flight Planner and FlyQ. I'm a national expert in iPads. If I haven't met you before, I have used and taught on several programs, and what I tell everybody, and I'm happy to announce publicly, is because FlyQ is the easiest to learn and use, not necessarily have the most features, but because it's the easiest to learn and use, it is what I recommend for 90% of general aviation pilots. Unless you're a professional pilot and you need weight and balance and expected instrument clearances in and out of Bravo airports and stuff like that, I gotta tell you, FlyQ is my favorite because it's so much easier to learn and use, which makes it safer in emergencies. So here's my only complaint about FlyQ. It's so easy to use that every time I do a webinar or a DVD, I finish really fast. Well, can't really do anything about that. So I know we were scheduled for an hour and a half. I'm going to try and stretch it to 45 minutes. If you can ask me some questions, that'll certainly help. But again, this is so intuitive and easy to use that most of you won't need a whole lot more training on these new features. If you do, we do offer, of course, DVD training, but I just want to let you know all this stuff is going to go pretty quick. So this is one of my favorite new features, and it's the terrain-based map. And it's one of my favorite features because I teach mountain flying, and it's really, really useful anytime you're flying in the mountains. Of course, you should only be landing in the mountains if you're formally mountain trained. The biggest cause of mountain flying accidents is not taking a mountain flying course before you go. But even if you're just flying over mountains along your route, this is a great way to plan ahead your escape if you have an engine failure. So let me show you that. So there I am at my home airport, Big Bear Airport, and the route out is to the Big Bear Dam and then down to Redlands. Now let me show you on the terrain-based map the canyons. So we'll just hit the layers button, and I'm going to hit terrain. And look how much better that is than a sectional map to show elevation. And I can zoom in, and one of the upgrades this year is a much faster mapping engine. So you'll see it draw in pretty quickly. But what I can do is just to the left of my purple line between Big Bear Dam and Redlands, I can now drag it in, create a custom waypoint there, and that tracks a descending canyon down to Redlands. And I actually put that into my flight plan because if I have any engine failure, that's the route already put in. So it makes it really, really easy. And this is what I recommend for everybody as part of a mountain flying course and as part of a pre-flight prep on anything that goes over high terrain. Now the new road-based map is actually kind of cool. Again, because I do a lot of flying into non-towered airports, people go, well, why do you need the road-based map? Well, again, as part of the pre-flight, the best thing about the road-based map is it shows all the street names. So when I land, I can tell my ride, pick me up at the corner of this and this. So here's Big Bear Airport. I'll just zoom in, and right there's the corner of Greenway Drive and Meadow Lane where I exit the airport. Now having that, I can tell the person picking up or the student meeting me, meet me at this corner. It's a really nice feature. It's also kind of convenient if you don't have any other way around town, but this really makes it easy. Again, in the pre-flight, you can tell people how to get to the airport and exactly where to meet you. Now the photo-based map is an aerial photo. It looks like aerial photo. It's a satellite image. But here's what I want you to do, especially if there are any instructors online tonight, and I know there's a couple. I want you to use this as a pre-flight teaching tool on where to go before every single takeoff at a low altitude engine failure. So if you look at Long Beach Airport, there's runway 30 running diagonal, and there's runway 25 right, left to right on top. Those are our two normal departure airports. But where do you land in an emergency? Well, before every takeoff with a student, I'm going to pull up the photo base map and we're going to plan together. So again, touch layers, go to aerial photo. Now there looks like a green long strip just northwest of the field that would be an easy crosswind turn from 25 right or an easy right turn from 30. And if we zoom in, we can actually zoom in and get such a high quality picture that we can go, okay, well, that's a cemetery. And do I want to land in the cemetery or to the road to the right? Well, if you look real close on the road to the right, you can see all the poles from the utility lines. So that tells me before I even take off that I'm going to make an easy right turn and land in the cemetery grass. The cemetery is always a great landing spot in an emergency because either way, it works out. I'll just assume people in the background at homes are laughing. At least I hope you are. But again, instead of going for the road, now that I know where the telephone wires are, I know it's safer on the grass. So if you do this before every single takeoff, especially at new airports, and you plan ahead, surviving an emergency is mostly being prepared for it before it happens. Now, the AFD versus the FlyQ SA diagrams. Here's the AFD at Big Bear Airport, and you can see it's kind of a basic diagram. And to the right of it is the new Seattle avionics diagrams. That's what an SA diagram is. The FAA only does about 700 real taxiway airport diagrams, and they'll occasionally do these, little stick drawings. Well, Seattle Avionics just added about 4,000 very detailed new taxi diagrams. It is awesome. You can see the difference in quality just by looking at it. Of course, Seattle Avionics being the only one that shows the wind over the actual runway, but look how much more detailed it is. If you look at the one on the left, you can see the egg-shaped are displaced threshold, the three egg-shaped. That means a displaced threshold. There's a P for a PAPI, We can see the airport beacon at the bottom and not a whole lot else of what's going on. Let's look at the Seattle Avionics ESA diagram. It actually shows not only the exact displaced thresholds, but tells you how many feet. It shows you where the windsocks are to look for. It shows you the PAPIs. It also shows you where transient parking is, even where the restaurants are. So I got a pretty good question here. Hold on, just get my mouse up to the got a good question here. Hold on just a second. I'm going to stop the presentation for a second. Hit play again. I got a question from Lee Fox. Lee asked, is there any procedure to notify Seattle Avionics when we find an error or a change that's not reflected in the SA diagrams? Absolutely, and they really need our feedback. So if there's any change at all you do is you click on the report a problem up at the top. So at Big Bear Airport, the Mandarin Garden restaurant is closed. There's also a new Hertz rental car. And of course, my Flying Bear cabin is for rent near the airport, but it's only available for pilots. So let's tell Seattle Avionics about that. We'll just click that. It automatically opens up an email. And let's just tell them. Mandarin Garden restaurant is closed. Hertz rental car available at the terminal. And let's do a free plug for the Flying Bear cabin, which I own, which I'm in, by the way. You can actually rent my cabin. There's a shameless self-promotion plug. FlyingBearCabin.com. Is pilots only. Walking distance. Love and kisses. Super Gary. I assume they just know it's me whenever I put Super Gary. Then we send it off. So Jeff has a question. Jeff, how do you get to the airport diagram? Well, it's pretty simple. All you have to do is touch airports at the bottom, pick the airport you want, or you can double tap on any airport on a chart and it will bring it right up for you. So another question from Steve Kravitz. Hey, Steve, how do I find these new airport maps? It's built in. It's in the airport information that you're normally used to in FlyQ. Sports TFRs. If you just touch a sports TFR and then touch TFR, you'll notice it brings up the Mariners visiting the Anaheim Angels near my other house. And it even tells you when it's scheduled to be active. Now, really, really important, you need to get a full and complete standard weather brief, which you can do through FlyQ, but always fly with flight following. If you fly with flight following on every single flight, even out to the practice area, A, your chances of midair drop by 500%. B, it's pretty impossible to violate a pop-up TFR that you didn't know about or one that starts earlier than you had planned. If people flew with flight following every time, we really wouldn't have TFR violations because they can warn you about them. They can warn you about especially the pop-up TFRs that even FlyQ misses. FlyQ is awesome, but it's not going to show a pop-up firefighting TFR because the FAA is not broadcasting that data. So as much as I love the TFR feature in FlyQ, remember, always get flight following too. Now this again is really awesome because I'm big into mountain flying. There's my route along, and let's say I'm flying from the right of the screen towards the left. At Bassett Peak, I'm pretty close to 76, 63, but how high is the terrain just west of that? Well, this is really important in mountain flying because you're always planning an escape route. You're always thinking ahead. So all you have to do is, of course, just touch twice near any terrain point, and it shows you ground elevation 5943. I don't know how they did that. I'm assuming the programmers were up for several days straight drinking a lot of Red Bull. That's amazing. You can literally touch any point on any downloadable map, and it will show you the ground elevation. Again, anytime you're in mountains or in hospitable terrain, you're always looking for the lowest place with the tailwind where you can get to in a glide. So this is just amazing. I don't think it's going to be used widely, but again, especially for instructors, it's really, really useful. So Shay, how do you zoom up in the app? Well, if you want to zoom in, you just put 2 fingers down on the iPad and spread your fingers. It's really, really simple. If you want to zoom out, you just pinch your fingers together. Went too far. So now this is an awesome feature. They just added it. It's the vertical speed required gauge. Now, FlyQ has always been very good at picking a top of descent, top of climb. The top of climb is marked as begin cruise. So it's always been great to plan, and what you do is you put in your airplane settings, I want to be this high above the airport, and I want to descend at 300 feet per minute, 500 feet per minute. By the way, 300 feet per minute descent is the best bang for the buck. It's what I teach everybody because 300 feet per minute gives you the highest increase in speed with the lowest drag. If you drop out of the sky at 1,500 feet per minute, you'll get a big increase in speed, but then you slog through the heavy, dense air and you lose all that advantage. So anytime you can, I always program in a 300 feet per minute descent because that gives you the best increase in speed for the least fuel and the least drag, and it's very comfortable for passengers. Anytime you're flying passengers, if you climb or descend at 300 feet per minute or lower, their ears won't pop and they have a happier flight. So it's just easier on the plane, it's easier on the passengers. Now for this particular one, what I've programmed is going from my home airport in Big Bear to my other home airport in Long Beach, is for this particular case, I wanted to show you a 500 foot per minute descent, and this is what it would look like in flight. So there I am. You see where the begin descent is? Well, remember I've pre-programmed it for 500 feet per minute. Watch the VSR gauge at the top just to the right of the center. It says VSR feet per minute down 383. That means if I start my descent now, that's what it would take. But remember, I've programmed it to 500. So you'll notice when my plane gets to the begin descent point, it will be at exactly 500 feet per minute. So I'm flying along perfectly happy at 8,500. And you see how the VSR is getting higher. When it gets to 500 will be exactly when I get over the begin descent. And look, there it is. And now I start my descent, and my ground speed picks up from 117 to 124. You can, of course, move the map. You can zoom in. You can zoom out. Now, if you go to Settings and you touch Aircraft Profiles, we'll do my 206-4941 Foxtrot, and we zoom up, you can see where I've put the descent of 500 feet per minute and a climb rate of 300 feet per minute. Now, I was flying up to Big Bear today from Redlands, and I was alone in the 206, and I had a climb rate of 1,300 feet per minute. That's all well and good, but I wouldn't do that with passengers. I'd climb much, much slower with passengers. So you can see how I typically plan my climbs and descents for 300 feet per minute. I've told you about the benefits of the ears not popping, passengers not being scared, but especially a low climb rate. I plan all my climbs out at 100 to 300 feet per minute. You should always do a cruise climb. A, you get there much, much faster. B, you have much more visibility, and you're really looking to avoid those mid-airs. And C, you're going to burn less gas, and it's way easier on the plane because you're at a much lower drag profile. So you're going to go faster, use less gas, and the most important thing, of course, is you can see better. So everybody likes to do VY, and that's awesome. VY or VX, especially in the mountains. But what I do is I do VY or VX until I'm 1,000 feet above the highest terrain within 5 miles, and then I climb out at 100 to 300 feet per minute because it's more important to get that visibility when I'm already clear of terrain. So just to make sure we're clear, climb at VY or VX to get above terrain. Never do anything but VY or VX until you're 1,000 feet up. Don't lower flaps. Don't change prop settings. Get 1,000 feet above ground level. At 1,000 feet above ground level, or the highest terrain within 5 miles, then accelerate to a cruise climb of 100 to 300 feet per minute, and you'll be amazed at how much cooler the engine runs, how much gas you save, how faster you get there, and how many more planes you see. So it's all about see and avoid. Clean your windshield before every flight, all lights on 24 hours a day, cruise climb with flight following and some nice ad-speed traffic, which we have on FlyQ, and you really have just kind of reduced the chances of a mid-air to almost nothing. Now, FlyQ Online is a new beta feature, and it's really, really awesome. It is, as much as I love FlyQ, and I honestly do, and I use some other programs too, it's always been kind of hard for me to plan a long cross country on an iPad. I use an iPad mini. I think the minis are best in most cockpits, but even the new big iPad Pro, it's still small. I got a 27-inch iMac at both homes. I'm going to use that. So what I thought is, let's show you how to FlyQ Online. Now, I do want to tell you it is a beta. Things are getting better every day, and occasionally mistakes will pop up. But it's so much easier to do a long cross-country flight plan on the big screen. And what FlyQ has done is they've made it easier to get it to the iPad than anybody else. And by meaning that, I mean you don't have to do anything. Anything you plan online will automatically just appear on your iPad. You don't have to email it. You don't have to sync it. You're just done. So let me show you how that works. We'll click on FlyQ Online from Seattle Avionics. It knows my location is in Big Bear. So when I click on Big Bear, it automatically opens up the AFD from that particular airport. I'll close that out. If we click on weather, there's some live weather that you can look at. Clicking on fuel is awesome because it's going to show you the lowest fuel prices. And you can see how much cheaper Big Bear is than Palm Springs. So Big Bear always has the cheapest airport gas in Southern California. Now you can do a flight plan below on the form, but it's really easy just to do it in the search box. So let's go from Redlands out to Las Vegas. KLAS. And if I put a V after that, that will automatically tell it to create a flight plan based on the Victor Airways. It's a nice handy shortcut. Create a flight plan. And look at that. Victor Airways clearly showing the intersections and the VOR. Now, if I just zoom in by using that plus button, drag the map just like you would in FlyQ, I know going into Las Vegas, they always want me to go to the Creosote intersection. So I'm just going to grab the transparent dot from the middle of that line just by pressing and holding on the mouse. Then tap Creosote and look to the left, and you can see it just put the Creosote intersection in. And that's it. That's all you have to do. You don't have to hit save. You don't have to hit sync. You don't have to do anything. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch back to my iPad mini. And what I'll do is click on routes, or plans is what it's called, I'm sorry. And look, recent flight plans right at the top. Redlands, Las Vegas. Touch it, and boom, it's done. Then I touch the maps, and look. And that's instantaneous. Now, of course, your iPad does need to be connected to the internet for that to happen, or for you to have cellular data capabilities. But there was no delay in me doing that. That was actually a live sequence. I pre-recorded the movies, but it happens that fast. And let me tell you, it's so much better, especially for planning long cross countries, to see terrain and Victor Airways, and you can overlay weather, and it's just awesome. Now, another internet flight planner that's been around for a really long time that most people are familiar with is the free AOPA flight planner. By the way, FlyQ Online is free if you're a FlyQ subscriber. So one of the things I like best about Seattle Avionics is they just charge a flat rate for a yearly subscription. It's this for VFR, it's this for VFR and IFR. They don't nickel and dime you to death. They're not looking for, well, for 20 bucks extra, you get synthetic vision. For $5 extra, you get this. It's all included. If you're an AOPA member and you're familiar with them, you can still use the AOPA flight planner. It's just 2 more steps. So it's really simple to use, especially if you're familiar with it, but you have to email the plan to yourself and then open up your email on the iPad and open the attachment in FlyQ. So let me show you how it works. So here's AOPA Flight Planner. And it looks like I've done a route from Long Beach out to El Paso, Texas, which is a route I fly quite frequently. It's all Victor Airways. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the email button in the bottom left. And I only check one email address on my iPad, so I'm going to put in my sunsetflying@me.com and click send. Now remember, you don't have to do that with FlyQ Online. It's just automatic. All right, the email was sent successfully. Awesome. Now let's go back to the iPad and let's check for that mail. Mail. Hey, it looks like I got a poker game this week. And see how I touch the Seattle Avionics FlyQ EFB button and then open it. Now I have more options on my iPad because I have to run several different programs. If you only have FlyQ, it'll only give you FlyQ. I have to run several different ones for comparisons. And look, it automatically puts it in the search box. So it says new chart data, and that's fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to touch the search box. Zoom out a little bit. Now I'm just going to touch the search box, and without changing anything, touch search. So it's a little more work from AOPA, but it's awful easy to figure out. So if you're a longtime fan and you like AOPA, you can still use it. And look, put it in the maps. Boom. It's the exact same route. So there's some big updates to FlyQ. Obviously, all the cool new base maps, the terrain, the road base, the photo base. The big hits for you that you should be really happy for and send flowers and chicken soup, etc. to Seattle Avionics are the new SA diagrams. Those are amazing. To have really detailed information about 4,000 more airports than you've ever had before is huge. The sports TFR is nice. The new vertical speed required is great. But really, between the SA diagrams, the new FlyQ Online, and the links to AOPA Flight Planner, it really just makes this a no-brainer tool. And again, what I like about it, it is really the easiest to use, and that's why I recommend it to so many people. Now, one of my new national sponsors, by the way, is Avidyne, and I'm really, really happy with Avidyne. I just installed a new IFD 440. If you're not familiar with the Avidyne, it is a drop-in plug-and-play replacement for the Garmin 430 or 530. There's no installation cost or downtime. I unscrewed the Garmin 430 and put in the new Avidyne 440, and I was done. It does everything the 430 does, but just way better, and adds a touchscreen. It's better than the GTN Garmin touchscreens because it has the touchscreen and the knobs. Flying today in mountain wave turbulence, I will tell you, any touchscreen is very hard to use. It was great to have the knobs too. Well, that's all well and good, but this is why I'm telling you the story. Coming very, very soon, FlyQ will link to the Avidyne, and you'll be able to exchange information. You'll be able to send flight plans back and forth and that kind of cool stuff. The Avidyne will provide your external GPS signal direct to FlyQ. Both FlyQ, Seattle Avionics, who makes FlyQ, and Avidyne are both big believers in an open structure and working with everybody. That's why Seattle Avionics works with more ADS-B devices than anybody else, because they don't care what you buy, they just want you to work it. So I do have a couple quick questions, and that's coming pretty soon. Richard Jansek asks, what are the little round orange circles? On the screen I'm looking at now, I don't see the little round orange circles. If I back up that movie, maybe I'll see what you're talking about. I don't see them in this particular movie. It may be a different screen if you want to send me that a more clarified question. Now, the other thing, FlyQ, and this is from Kim Huntington. Hey, Kim. FlyQ also includes a free iPhone application. It's not moving map, but it's airport information and charts and stuff, and it's a great backup. Oh, and I think the orange circles, and thanks, several people are telling, the orange circles you were asking about was probably the TFRs. Okay, so again, Seattle Avionics, you make it so easy. I just don't have a lot to talk about. If anybody has a question, now would be a good time. Paul Berkowitz, please go over the vertical speed required again. No problem, Paul. All you have to do is you have to set up in the aircraft profile a descent rate and how high you want to be, how far out from the airport. And then on the gauges, you just have to add the VSR gauge. It's pretty easy to do. Now, Gary has a good question. He can't get the hand to grasp the flight plan on the online version. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back up a couple slides, and I'm going to show you that. So on the FlyQ Online, I want to back up one more slide. Okay, so I'm just going to advance the movie. You have to look on the route. They're a little hard to see. You got to zoom in. Halfway between waypoints, and I'm going to stop it right there, is a little, look at the tip of my finger, there's a little transparent dot halfway in the middle of the line. If you want to rubber band something, you have to grab the middle of the line with your mouse. It takes a little getting used to, but you got to grab the exact middle of the line. All right, so let me go back to where I was. Well, guys, I'm pretty much done. Seattle Avionics just makes things so easy. There's not a whole lot I can add to it. If you have any questions, you can always go over to pilotsafety.org, click on Ask the Experts, and send me a question. You can also directly email Seattle Avionics. They're awesome. If you really want to understand FlyQ and every little button press and how to use it, we do sell a DVD online at pilotsafety.org That's 90 minutes of pushing all the buttons and exactly how to use the program. And that's probably the best way to get started. Seattle Avionics has a lot of great YouTube videos. This is very detailed training from me, and it's only $79. And this is probably about the biggest difference that I tell people between FlyQ and like a ForeFlight. I sell training DVDs for ForeFlight that are 8 hours long. I really could only come up with about 90 minutes on FlyQ. It's just that much easier. So if you'd like, do that, and it absolutely helps raise money for our volunteer group. And I'd like to tell you all about a webinar tomorrow that I would like you to register for. Again, I teach mountain flying, and we're going to do a webinar tomorrow. It is a $19 paid webinar. It raises money for our volunteer group, but surviving a crash is mostly preparation. You need to be trained and carry the right equipment before the crash. In this particular crash, which we're going to talk about tomorrow, a firefighter, his wife, and his daughter were survived the crash, but were stuck for over 40 hours without food, without heat, without medical care. So he had some supplies, but then couldn't get to them. So surviving an emergency is mostly being prepared before you have the emergency, and that's really what you want to work on. So if you'd like to register for this, again, it'll help the volunteer group. We'd love to have you. It is tomorrow night, Wednesday, 4/27/16 at 6:30 p.m. Pacific, and you can register now by going to pilotsafety.org. So now I'm going to just scroll through a couple questions real quick. Richard says he planned a route from AVL to KGRR, and the altitude suggested was not appropriate for him. Yet remember, with all electronic flight planning, it's still your responsibility to make sure you have terrain clearance. So Scott Smith, you have a great question. Hi, Scott. Show how you sent FlyQ Online to iPad again. There was nothing to show, buddy. I don't do anything. That's what's awesome about FlyQ Online. Any route you plan in FlyQ Online, the very next second that you turn on the iPad, it will appear under the routes. You don't have to send it, sync it, do anything. There is no function to do that because it's automatic. Stephen Hochberger, I'm sorry if I messed that up. If you buy the iOS app, the FlyQ EFB, I'm assuming, on the iPad, you get online planning for free. You also get the iPhone version for free. So anytime you buy FlyQ EFB, which is the electronic flight bag on an iPad, you automatically get FlyQ Online for free, and you automatically get the matching iPhone app, which has airport information, weather, and charts for free. So Ami, hi Ami, is FlyQ EFB the same as FlyQ? Yes. FlyQ EFB, so FlyQ is a suite of software. You can do FlyQ Online, you can have FlyQ chart data on your iPhone, and you can have FlyQ EFB on your iPad. They all work very similar. FlyQ Online is very similar to the FlyQ on the iPad EFB. EFB just means electronic flight bag. That's the version that works on the iPad. Well, y'all, I've about answered as many questions as my voice is going to tolerate. If I did not answer your question, please email me anytime. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you tell Seattle Avionics lots of suggestions to improve the SA diagrams. And I hope you all have a really great night. If you'd like to share this webinar with anybody, it will be online starting tomorrow morning for free on pilotsafety.org. Have a good night, y'all.